Thanks for joining us on another For Investors, By Investors South Bay podcast. As always, we are proud to be your all-education real estate investment resource without any kind of sales pitch. If you would like to attend one of our meetings in person, we meet the second Wednesday of the month at The Point in El Segundo. You can RSVP at forinvestorsbyinvestors.com/South Bay. To find more investment resources such as blogs and podcasts from other FIBI groups, go to forinvestorsbyinvestors.com and search our library. Now, on to the podcast.
So anyway, I think it just becomes a perfect backdrop, right? You know, the whole premise of FIBI, and actually what attracted me to FIBI was one of Jeremy's rooms, 8 or 9 years ago, was that, look, you can't believe the noise you hear in the media, right? Like the media has a slant on everything. You got to listen, you got to pay attention, you got to look at the facts, and you got to look at how multiple people interpret them, and then make up your own mind and figure out how that impacts yourself and how you're investing. So I hope I didn't steal too much of your thunder there, but that's kind of what the purpose of FIBI is, right? We are a no sales pitch, non-profit environment where people come and learn and network with each other. And I think that's what we're most proud of, is the community that we've built around that concept of providing good quality education and equally good networking. With that, once we're done here, we've actually reserved, North Italia is a restaurant that's just on the other side of the courtyard here, and we've reserved the patio. We've got appetizers that we bought. It'll be a cash bar. The magic of FIBI is the after party. I mean, you all networking here beforehand. After we're done here, we encourage everyone to come over, have a drink, get some food, and meet a few people, right? Try to find someone that, you have a connection with. And this is something we like to do sometimes. Just out of curiosity, who here has money and they're looking for a deal to invest in? Please raise your hands. Okay, who here has a deal and you're looking for money? Right? So about 50-50, right? So that's really where, everyone always asks, like, man, how much money do you guys make on FIBI? We're like, make money on FIBI? Are you kidding me? We lose money on FIBI. That's not the purpose of it. But every real estate deal I've ever done, somehow FIBI has been connected. I've been a person, a resource, some component of it that has made that deal better. So the way we do that is we do have some sponsors that we just want to thank and recognize. Deep with New Western, those guys are some hardcore wholesalers. So if you're looking to buy wholesale property, we recommend New Western. Spira Woodward, I don't think anyone's here from their firm. They're a local real estate and business firm here in the South Bay. Actually, Stephen was a speaker last month. Very sophisticated real estate attorneys. UDirect, is Jeff here? I think it's the first time Jeff hasn't been to a meeting. So if you don't know, you can use your IRA to invest in real estate or 401ks, and UDirect specializes in that. So if you're looking for a connection, let us know. We'll get you connected to those guys. I know Brian's here with Civic. Brian, where are you at? Right up here. So Civic is a hard money lending operation, mostly residential, some commercial as well. So if you're looking for a connection on that, we recommend you talk to Brian. Andrew from Walker Dunlop said he'll probably be here around 7 o'clock. We all know he'll show up at 9:15 once the drinks start getting served. But those guys are commercial lenders, and they do all kinds of loans on large commercial projects. Then lastly, we've got the Note Assistance Program. Sabrina right over here waving her hand. These guys are actually doing a 2-day class, not this weekend, but next weekend, on investing in non-performing notes. So if you've ever been, San Francisco, yeah, it's in San Francisco. So if anyone has an interest in learning about investing in non-performing notes, see Sabrina after the meeting. She can give you more information on that conference. Speaking of which, you all got a flyer on your chair here today. Who here has heard of our conference we're doing in November, the Intelligent Investor? Okay, great. Who here is going? Is anyone? Okay, good. We've got a good group here. Actually, we're co-running this with Hunter Thompson. Hunter, raise your hand back there. Hunter runs Cash Flow Connections and has a really great podcast that he puts on. And it's something that we've talked about for FIBI for years, doing a conference, but we are a nonprofit and we just never had the time to put something like that together. So we partnered with Hunter, who's been doing a lot of hard work on this conference, and we're really excited about it. If you look at the back of this thing, actually everyone up here is somehow involved in the conference. Actually, Aaron's speaking on a couple of panels as well, because I think you're out of the country that week. That's almost out of the country. Yeah, it's halfway out of the country. So if you've been following along, the cost of the conference, we originally went out at $395, which was a $495 ticket for a 2-day with a $100 discount. What we're going to do for tonight is we created a special code just for tonight in this group. So if you're interested in going to the 2-day event, if you sign up for the next 24 hours, there's a code here, it's FIBI. If you use that code, you can still get the super early bird pricing of $395. So if you're here tonight and you have a great experience and you're looking for more information similar to what we provide tonight, we strongly recommend the conference. You can either go online or after the fact, Jackie will be in the back and she can help you sign up for the conference. But at any point in time, if you just go to intelligentinvestors2018.com, if you use the FIBI SB code, you'll get $200 off, which is $100 less than what's open to the general public right now. It's in Marina Del Rey and the Marriott. And the way we structured the conference is very much the way we structure our regular meetings. It's a mix of education as well as networking. So we're going to have an education space, we're going to have a networking space, we're going to encourage people to spend time meeting each other in the networking space and then going in the education space. And we put together some phenomenal panels, a lot of topics, and we're really excited about it. So we hope to see you guys in November.
Dave, can I just add a couple things?
Yeah, please.
Okay. First of all, thanks everyone for coming tonight. I just want to point out with the conference that conference is definitely a lot of money, obviously, but we're almost certainly going to lose money on it. Honestly, I can almost guarantee that's very expensive of a conference on in LA. So I just want everyone to know we're not doing the conference to make. We lose money off the FIBI every year. We've never made money off the FIBI conference. But we're probably going to lose a lot of money on the conference. We want to finally give it a shot after all the years. And for us, it's really about all the networking and learning and everything. So if we could have it for less expensive and be in this area, we absolutely would, but it's really, really expensive to put on. So I just want to point that out, just in case anybody was curious. So we're not doing this to make money off of the conference. Most of those conferences make their money from sponsors. We have very limited amount of sponsors. We do not want to have sales pitches for you guys.
This is not an expo. There will not be a room with 70 people that have bought a booth looking to sell. I think we've limited our sponsors to 15 sponsors only, and really it's just going to be, they'll have a space in the networking area where we can talk to them as well. So, and then lastly, before we jump into it, our next panel for FIBI South Bay is on November the 14th, I believe. Whatever the second Wednesday in November is. The title of the panel is Where to Invest Next, Follow the Money. We've got 3 speakers. One is a guy named Andrew Ray, who's a developer. We've got John Kiesler, who works as a city developer for the city of Long Beach, which is an area that has a ton of development happening in it. And the third person, her name is Carolyn Petty, and she works for the Cosmon Group, which is kind of an intermediary that works between developers and communities, and she's also the ex-mayor for Hermosa Beach. So understanding how development impacts the community and what that means as an opportunity for us as investors to invest around those kinds of opportunities is what we'll be talking about next month here. And I believe that's on our meetup page. So if you're interested, sign up, whatever that second Wednesday is in November. As we always do, we have a list of questions that we've written here, and there's a lot of stuff to get to, but we still, we encourage you to participate. If you've got a question, please raise your hand. We'll get to as many questions as we can. If it's something that we're going to be talking about, kind of later in the flow, we'll just kind of let you know that. And then, other than that, if you need to get up and stretch your legs in the back, you can, the kitchen here is still open. We just ask you to go around the edge here versus walking through the middle of the panel. And then lastly, before we do introductions, we are live, Facebook live streaming this. So that's what the iPad there is for. So this is being live streamed, which means tomorrow morning when you want to remember what that one thing Bruce said or the question that Christina asked or whatever that is, if If you go to For Investors by Investors on Facebook, you can pull up the live stream and you can hear it again. So.
Bruce, can we get some confirmation on camera that some release of information whether we're already on camera? I was just thinking Aaron's going to go dead and where it's fine. My brother tells me that all the time. He's like, you wear the jacket with no tie in, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I can't. Quitting corporate America.
Well, that's okay. Time issue, we're going to CPA.
Yeah.
Clearly not a CPA. Okay, so we are going to get started, and we're going to ask for each of you guys to do like a quick little 3 to 5 minute introduction on who you are, and Christina, why don't you go first?
Hi everybody, my name is Christina Suter, and thank you for those people who know me in the audience. I appreciate it. No, my mom's not here.
I just heard a cheer.
Yeah, I know. No, I chased the plant. I gave her $20 before we walked in. So I have been investing for over 30 years. I started in a group a lot like this. We eventually called it the Real Estate Mastermind Group, and I actually have a friend who moved from that group. So we've been around and investing for that long. I started when I was 17 with a house that my mom was in. My mom at the time was in poor health, and she gave me a house, and I used that money to basically buy single families and rent them out. And I did that for a while until we had enough of an upturn in the real estate market that I actually ended up rolling that into a multi-unit in Southern California. And then I kind of got into what some of us have gotten into, which is, you know, when you travel, you keep buying real estate. So, no head nods. Okay. So maybe I'm the only crazy person that basically when I was traveling, I kept buying real estate. So I ended up owning real estate in Hawaii, Kapa'a, in Los Angeles, in Oregon, in Virginia, in Arlington, Texas, Knoxville, Tennessee. And so I'm basically owning in-state and out-of-state. I have about 50 doors and about another 300 I have partial interest in. And then when the downturn came, I was newly married. I got married in September 2006. That was right before what? Let's see. And I waited a long time to get married, so I was a little stressed out, just a little bit, as you lose zeros. So I ended up cashing all that in, and I ended up turning it into hard money lender. So I had 2 condo conversion projects I was working on, and I brought all that to a close and sold all my doors and I was flipping all at that time. So then I did hard money lending for the last almost 10 years, about 8 years, and now I'm back to flipping. So I'm flipping in the Pasadena area, and I'm looking to move on to another. Personally, I'm bringing the flipping to a close. I will just state that, and I'm moving on to another potential real estate investment style of opportunities. But basically, my passion for the economy came down to in 2006. I was not only doing 2 condo conversions, flipping a couple different houses, and had all my doors, and I did sell everything in 2006. So having gotten my hand slapped pretty badly in the last downturn, I became absolutely passionate about being a hobbyist and studying the economy. Because all ships rise and fall. And if I had been studying it more diligently and I'd been more present, I was able to sell everything I had. I was able to bring money home. But I was busting my butt to do it. You know, you have that moment, for some of us, you have that moment where you go, am I just such a bad loser? I should just walk away from real estate because I don't know what the frick I'm doing. So the truth is, maybe, right? And then you have to look at yourself and go, but if I walk away from real estate, who am I going to be when I'm 80? Is this what I want to do? Is this who I want to be? And you have to double down and clean it all up, and then stand on your own 2 feet again, and be a better investor the next time. So if you follow the economy, that helps you be a better investor the next time.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, Christina. Bruce, I think you came the farthest with me yesterday morning.
It felt like that. As I look at the clock actually hanging there, it reminds me of how time stood still while I was in the car. I would drive 10 miles and I still would be 30 minutes away. I got my start in real estate in about 1981. Interest rates were 17%. I didn't know anything about real estate. I got a chance to work for a company that was the largest home flipper in Orange County. And the only reason I thought I might apply for that job is I went with somebody the week before who wanted to show me that he thought I had potential. So he took me to a home that was in foreclosure that had responded to an ad. When we went in, we were in there for about 10 minutes and we got kicked out. And that was my start of watching the process. When we got back to the car, I said, you know, that lady actually said yes to your proposal, but you, for whatever reason, you didn't listen. So I knocked on the door, got us back in, and we bought it. And so that night when I drove home, I thought, I think I understand how this works. But I needed a license to go work for the company, so I took a weekend course from one blow and applied for the job at the real estate buying company. First question the guy asked me that owned the company, he said, how long have you had your license? And I said, 1 day. He laughed just like that. He said, yeah, there's no place for an inexperienced agent. And he had made a mistake thinking that I was there applying for a job, and that was not true. I was there to change my entire future. And so for that, you fight a little harder. And I said, so let me ask you a question. By the way, that's the one question that's probably made me more money in my entire life. Because whatever happens in the next 10 seconds or 3 seconds of thought, the best stuff in the world has come out of my mouth. And I have no idea what's coming out of my mouth when I say that statement. So I asked this guy, isn't the bottom line around here whether you can buy properties for a profit or not? He says, yeah. And I said, you'll know in 30 days I can do it better than anybody you have. I just passed the first test of being a buyer. I'll take no for an answer. I bought 10 houses, and now this is what is amazing. Honestly, I did buy 10 houses the first month of being in the business and made 1 year's worth of income. And did it the next month, left the company and did it on my own. So I understood really quickly what we have to offer. You have equity, I have cash, my stuff is cooler. It is, it's just easier, right? All of us have had a pile of equity and wish I had some cash. I did it for about 15 years, so that gets us to about 96. And I had an interest in trying to figure out how the cycles work, because in '89, after doing stuff, thinking it always was the same, it always worked, I built 7 custom homes in Palm Springs that I thought would sell for $550. They sold for a little less than that, $350. And I had fortunately made $1 million on a land deal in 1988 in about 6 months. So I had the money. I didn't really want to donate it to the real estate gods that quickly, but that's the way it worked. And in 1995, my son Aaron graduates from high school. I buy him a Honda Civic for $15,700, and the only reason I remember the number is 2 days later I bought a house in Riverside for $13,300. And I thought, what the heck's going on, man? And so I would say for the last that many years, 23 years, I've made it my business to figure out when to do something, not just how to. And that's kind of what we're going for, trying to figure out the timing of being an investor in California.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruce. Jeremy.
All right. I have a lot less experience than these 2 guys over here, which is like shocking for experience you guys have. Yeah. So I've been investing actually for almost about 17 years. It seems like a long time to me, but they have a lot more experience than me. I actually am a little bit different than both of them in terms of what I focus on. So I'm a full-time, what I call myself, passive cash flow investor. In that I, is the mic okay? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, it's just me. It's just me then. In that I tend to invest into managed opportunities that be managed by somebody else, where they're pulling a lot of investors together. Typically, I focus on commercial real estate, and I started being passive because I was working in the corporate world back in 2002. I was actually working at Disney headquarters in Burbank. I did not have time to do anything actively, and that's how I got started passively. Long story short is I rotated my money out of stocks and bonds into cash flow starting in 2002. In 2007, I was able to get out of the corporate world from the cash flow. My last corporate job was at headquarters in Torrance. And so I've been a full-time passive cash flow investor since mid-2007. I tend to focus mostly on commercial real estate. I do a little bit of residential too, and a whole bunch of other things. And I tend to invest actually outside of California. just for higher cap rates or basically higher cash flow typically, because I really focus on cash flow. I also manage an investor group, private investor group of over 1,000 investors who are looking for similar type of opportunities in terms of relatively passive, low-risk cash flow. Just want to thank everyone again for coming. Really appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks, Mason. Appreciate it.
Thanks for
my name
creating
is-
FIBI so we can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jeremy created FIBI at a coffee shop with, what, how many people? 3 people, and you did business with one of them, was the first part?
No, and this is actually, let me tell the story real quick, because this is just really the importance of networking. So the first TV meeting ever was at, it was actually in Westwood at a Starbucks, and 3 other people showed except for me. One was selling books and tapes, which was not our thing. I'm not even joking, it was like a $20,000 course. And another one was a flipper who I actually have invested with multiple times since. And another one was actually an ATM operator who I've invested with for many, many years now really successfully. So I was like 2 for 3, which is, if anybody knows me and how picky I am, that's just ridiculous. But it goes to show you just never know who you're going to meet. And there's so many good people here tonight, so hopefully once the meeting's done, you'll stick around and network even more because you just never know who's in the room.
I think that's really important because it's like the consistency of coming and meeting the same people over and over again. You start to see, what they're doing, get to know them a little bit, and start to be able to invest with them and have them invest with you. And there's so many opportunities, and this business is all relationships. It's all relationships and setting up systems and trying not to lose money on a flip or something like that, So my name is Matthew. Contrary to what Dave said, I am a CPA, and I'm better than him at golf and pretty much everything else he does too, so just for the record. But you'll see this banter a few times. He'll call me white, I'll call him way too tan, so things like that. But anyways.
He is way too tan.
Yeah. Wait till you see him like in the heat of the summer, like it's crazy. You're like,
I have seen it.
okay, seriously, yeah. So I basically quit my CPA firm job in 2006. So I was a real estate genius for about a year before I realized it was the market who was the genius, it wasn't me. And one thing was really humbling at the time because, quitting a CPA firm job, hanging the entire ego on credit and, having good credit and being able to start to do a lot of deals really quickly, you start to realize, wow, you didn't know as much as you thought you did, and you start to realize next time around, you better have that chip on your shoulder to keep watch for that market that may come and correct you again, slap you across the face. But since that market correction, I've flipped about a little bit over 700 houses. We flip about 5 to 10 a month. We do a lot of lending out of state, in different areas. We have about $10 million lent out right now. We do a lot of value-add multifamilies out of state markets. We own a management company, a renovation company, and a brokerage, primarily in the Memphis market. And we do a lot of different turnkey sales in different markets around the country. We do short-term rentals as well. And I have a 3-year-old son and a 3-month-old daughter that made me finally learn how to delegate. And so that's the most amazing thing ever, Christina. I actually hired Christina for a consultation. She's like, delegate, write everything down, revenue process, start to finish.
Don't tell them that because you didn't listen to me.
It took having a daughter to be
a
like,
little precious package, not some other lady.
you can't get up at 4 in the morning every day to get work done. So that's my story.
My name is David Coe, and this is my Keller Williams office here. We specialize in dealing with both distressed properties and also dealing with investors. I think our entire team's here today. Where is the team here? Lewis is back there. I think everyone's here somewhere. Gloria's here. So if you're a single-family investor, we'd love to meet you. Come find us after the meeting. As an investor, I started fixing and flipping in 2006, right around the same time Matt did, and I was also a genius for about a year and a half. And then, when I realized that I need to learn more about the business and the economics of real estate, I actually got recommended to go to Jeremy's group. It's where he and I met. We've invested over the years. We started playing golf together. The first time I golfed with Matt, I thought he had some kind of physical disability. But I realized it was just that he was new to the sport. And if you don't believe me, I have a video on my phone right now that I will share with you after the meeting and I'm going to tell you if you buy me a drink.
Come over in Vegas.
It was during his bachelor party, I'll just leave it at that. So anyway, thank you guys for coming. We're going to launch into the panel now, and Christina, we're going to ask the first question to you. I mean, when you're paying attention to the economy, what kind of data do you like to follow, and where do you find it?
All right, so Business Insider, I like to do Tuesday morning. There's a new one called Atom, ATTOM, that I like to use as well. But honestly, my favorite is Google. I'm like, okay, what's GDP right now? Google. What's the vacancy factor right now? Google. What's the days on market right now in Knoxville, Tennessee? Google. So I really I go straight to Google. I also love using Fred, which is the St. Louis Federal Reserve, and their search engine sucks, so you have to get to the right chart through Google. Just don't even bother trying to search on Fred directly. I like going to, as much as possible, I like to get the data. So when I'm reading articles, I'm not really reading for an opinion. I'm reading for what's the number that's actually changed. And once they start highlighting a number, if I don't have the history of that in my brain, then I go to Google. And I go, okay, what's the history of house prices in, Arlington, Texas? What's the history of, vacancy factor? What's going on in these particular markets? So that's where I get my information. Really, it's just Google. My husband reads the Wall Street Journal and the LA Times and cuts out articles for me because I like to delegate. So that's my, and he's really good at that. I also listen to Fox News and I listen to Bloomberg, of course. And those are kind of daily things while I'm driving around. So that was where I find the information. What are the indicators I'm looking for? I'm really, for me, I like watching the economy as well as real estate. So I'm listening for consumer confidence, I'm looking for the inflation, I'm looking for GDP, I'm looking for GDP debt, what percentage we are. But I'm not making all my decisions based on those. I'm really looking for what's the general trend of what's going on. So I look to that. And then when I go over real estate, I'm looking at pending sales, I'm looking at the affordability index, I'm looking at the interest rate, although the interest rate, as Liz will tell you, isn't a primary indicator. But I do look at interest rates. And I'm looking to see what's going on with volume. I'm also looking to see what's going on with price. So I really want to see what's coming down the pike. So really I'm looking for creating a picture. So price might still be going up, but if days on market is starting to expand, then that's more of my leading indicator. Because price really is later, and price is the after effect of demand going down. It's the after effect of days on market getting longer. It's the after effect of an increase in inventory in that particular market. So I'll even go down to if I'm searching a new market, I'll go on Zillow and I'll look at how many days on market am I seeing in general in that particular area to give me a sense for the volatility if I can't really find the number that tells me what's days on the market right now. Does that answer your question?
That's great. Bruce, what about yourself?
After that answer, there's nothing left.
You have it more organized than I do. You have your 5 particular things that you look at that are very specific.
What's interesting about what you said is that it's important to have a history of what you're looking at, so you can put it into context. So finding out today's numbers is one thing. Being able to put them in context with something that's 30 years long is more important than today's number. So I think that's one advantage I guess I have. I already have all that stuff. And so when I see something, I can look at it, but I also can judge it by all the other data that I have and go, okay, that's not significant. There's some things that aren't significant that you would think would be. Consumer sentiment. If you took that chart, connected it to a median price chart, you'd go, well, that's meaningless. Isn't that interesting? Because a lot of times it's euphoric when it should be cautious, or it's more cautious when it should be buying. And so it's a human nature factor, but it doesn't mean it's a good guide for you to follow. There's a lot of thought about, okay, well, we just had an 800-point hit on the Dow, so does the real estate and the stock market work in unison? And that's why I love charts. You can check that in a second. What happened in 2003 in stocks? They got killed. How did we do in real estate? which is fine. Okay? Now, you can also find times like the last 5 years. How did real estate do? Right? How's stock market do? Right? So what you find out is there's some things that aren't consistent, so you can't rely on them saying, okay, well, I'm going to count on that. Okay? So that's what's important about having longevity on charts, is you can take a look at it and say, is it true every time? Because if it's not an indicator that I'm going to really pay attention to.
Jeremy, what about yourself? What are some of the things that you like to follow on a regular basis?
Yeah,
And also a follow-up question on that. Like, what's your pattern for how you follow information? Is it something you do every single day, or what's your habit on looking at economic data?
Okay, so first thing I'll say is I probably read 1 to 2.5 to 3 hours a day of data. It's actually one of the first thing I do. It's actually a really bad habit, because I wake up in my bed, take the phone. So the first thing I do is just read for like an hour without even doing anything to try and understand what's going on. So it's very top of mind. Actually, some of the same resources that Christina mentioned. Business Insider is good. I actually look at CNBC. One website I really like, which is very pessimistic, but one of the reasons why I like it is because they have a lot of charts and data. And it's not necessarily real estate focused, or just general economy and zero hedge. Really, really pessimistic today. If you just forget about the pessimism and just try to look at the charts themselves, there's a lot of really good data there every single day. And there's a couple others too. What I will say is that, to Bruce's point, that I think as a more commercial real estate investor, it's a little bit different analysis, because I'm trying to figure out where are the cap rates going, where are the multiples going on income, right? Basically, someone's paying a multiple on the net operating income of a building. And that's going to change depending where you're in the cycle. A downturn, that's going to shift back. So it's almost like when you buy a business, you're paying a multiple for it at different times in the economy. You're going to pay a higher multiple, lower multiple. I'm just trying to be really smart with how I end up getting in on the buy to protect myself from downside. So I will try to follow. I try to follow the consumer side and the economy to understand sentiment, to understand are we going to have an economic downturn, because that's going to affect an operating income. Because the economy goes bad, businesses have to shut down, vacancies in commercial real estate go up, your income goes down. More square footage means it's going to be a lower price per square foot, and the whole market's going to shift, right? So by the way, that process could take months or years to happen, but you got to try to get ahead of it and anticipate when it's going to happen. And so I watch consumer sentiment and other parts of the economy for that reason. And then on the other side of things, I'm just looking at deals all day long. And I'm looking at where those multiples are in the market. Do I think they're too frothy or not? Which I think they are right now, for sure. And then it's a pretty simple equation. What do? I kind of wait until there's some type of adjustment. And also, it's a great time to sell, in my opinion, if you're willing to take money off the table at the top. So I don't know when the top's going to be. One thing I will say is I'm looking at the yield curve very, very closely to try to predict when there might be economic recession. We're not quite there yet, but so there's a whole bunch of other things I look at. That's just kind of high level, the way that I look at it.
What's interesting about that, you're looking for an inverted yield curve, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now the 10 years moving.
I know, yes.
So that's interesting, because commercial real estate, if it's a cap rate that people are interested in, what happens if you have a 5% 10-year T-bill? What happens to the value of apartment buildings?
Yeah, obviously they go down.
Yeah.
So interest rates go up, it's more expensive to get a loan, values go down. Interest rates are going up right now. And actually there are some things slowly adjusting. The problem is that the rates have been going up slowly, so there's been some asset classes that have slowly adjusted, but we haven't had an actual adjustment or correction yet because the economy hasn't gone down yet.
What's really interesting about the interest rates right now, and again, this is a good thing to understand historically. So right now we have 3.9% unemployment. And in 1932, we had 25% unemployment. In 1932, we had minus 16% GDP growth. And we had about 4%. Interest rates in 1932 for the 10-year T-bill was 3.6%, and today they're 3.2%. Think about that. So what's gone on for the last 8 years, somebody thought that this could have been the next Great Depression, and that's why those interest rates were there. And that's what you're seeing is this now. One of the Fed governors just came out, and that's why your stock market had a really very bad week and day, is he said, we're nowhere close to normalizing rates. And that's a factual statement if you look at it in context all the way back to the Great Depression. How could you possibly have interest rates lower today at these unemployment rates than you did in 1932 with 25% unemployment? That's astonishing when you think about that. On that curve, you're going, oh.
Speaking on that point, we've been in this for 10 years, right? And I think plus, and I'd really like to know what the exact date of the clients. I don't even try.
So Tony Alvarez actually, that was funny. Tony Alvarez, you know who he is? Yeah. All right. 2004, he meets me for the first time we meet. He was going to sell all of his inventory in Lancaster, and I said, I just want to do that. It's not time, and I'll show you why. Because we were dragging our feet to build 93 houses 10 miles away from him. And I told him why. Okay, so when it gets to 2006, I said, okay, I'm out of here. I've sold everything. He said, well, 2005, he asked me, well, what month do I need to sell everything?
What do you think, because of the rising interest rates and things like that, what do you think is actually going to occur long term with these rates? Because obviously with the rate increases we've had and the stock market drop, it doesn't seem like the market is sustainable enough to continue to handle rate increases. I mean, I feel like the affordability and things like that are squeezing more and more, especially in markets like California. But I don't know that we're at our peak yet compared to the last crash as far as affordability, right?
Not even close.
And how far are we on that piece?
Last reading of total affordability is 26% from the state, 17% is normally the ending. Okay. Now, what's also interesting, though, that journey from 26% to 17 is usually a very powerful market with prices accelerating double digits, sometimes 20%. Volume of sales exploding. We don't have that this time. So that's what's interesting is this time it's different. And to figure out why is really an interesting thing to say. Okay, well, why is this reacting differently? And that's what I was working on.
What's your thoughts, Christina, on the overall timing of the market and some of the different investments that you're focused on now to try to mitigate the risk associated with the market? Because with the interest rates, it's affecting me and my markets and the cash flow markets and things like that, of course, on the sales side, as far as cash flow goes and things like that. And there's, all these different factors are so different compared to what asset class you're comparing. So I think it's very relevant to talk about, how you're adjusting and what you're specifically investing in based on what's happening in the market versus just like overall necessarily, right? Because it depends on what you're investing in, right? So
it's a lot of questions, and I'll do my best.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, totally fine. Because you asked me, well, what am I doing? So I'm flipping right now in homes that we sell for 2.5 to 3 million in that range. So if you're looking at that particular market, then there's the inventory and the days on market has been expanding noticeably in the last 6 months. So something that would sell and get an offer in 20 days is now going to take 45 days, 60 days. It's going to stay on the market. Literally, it might take us 4 months to get a solid offer where we're really going to move forward.
What cities are you?
Pasadena. That's right. So I'm in Pasadena. So that particular area, I'm like, well, I'm not going to continue to play in that area. We've got 2 projects. We're going to bring them for closing. We're done with playing at that price point because that price point doesn't make sense for what we're doing. But at the same time, that's me. Okay. Now we'll move on to something else. But if you look at the economy in general, because you asked a couple of different questions, so you look at the economy in general, and I feel like we're seeing indicators that other markets are slowing down. San Francisco's slowing down. We're seeing decreased appreciation nationally, right? Interest rates have been going up. Not too surprising. In the last 4 out of 5 months, we're seeing a decreased speed of appreciation. Still appreciating in our price point, but the speed at which it's appreciating at is slowing down. And so that's the kind of indicators I'm looking for in being able to say, well, is this significantly important? So somebody asked me, was it a year, 6 months ago or 8 months ago? So, real estate prices have gone down, what do you think? And I'm like, well, honestly, it always goes down in this time period. That's not enough data points. So 4 out of 5 is turning from enough data points. Can I declare that we're having an economic movement just because the speed of appreciation is slowing down nationally, or that days on market used to be accelerating in 390 something markets, and 97 markets, and now it's only accelerating in 380 markets, right? Which means I'm now having acceleration in less markets than I did before. So you see how the data is very minimal. Like, I'm not getting an indicator I have a downturn. I'm getting an indicator of having something slow on me, right? So that's how I'm looking at it. Now, interest rates. So interest rates have been increasing, but we know that if you observe interest rates, they don't directly affect the actual prices on real estate. There's not a direct correlation between the interest rate that you have on real estate and the price point that you're paying. Why is that the case? Because behind the price that you're paying on real estate, as well as the price that you're paying for your quote-unquote inflation and interest rate, is the inflation in the overall economic growth in the economy. So GDP's been 2%, 2%, 1%, 2%. We've been looking at that. Now they've just said this quarter that they're anticipating 2018 is going to be 4%. So is there a growth in the economy as a whole? There might be. So does that mean that just because interest rates are going up, that we're going to see a slowing in real estate? Or is there going to be a push behind the affordability factor, where real wages are going to go up, and prices are going to go up, and interest rates are all going to go up together, because they're all together using. So I'm not betting the farm on this, just letting you know. I'm pulling my stuff off the table. And why? Because my market's done. My regional market's done. If you're in San Francisco is appreciated by 85%. Right, from the 2007 number. If it goes back to the trend line of what the bottom of the market is in San Francisco, that's a 40% downturn in San Francisco. That's called an appreciation market. That's gambling and speculation. I'm okay with that, just so you know. I'm the only one on this panel that's ever going to say, I'm okay with speculation in an appreciating market. I'm like, yes, baby. Ride your horse, but know what your freaking horse is. Just saying. Just offering, right? So, I would want to keep playing in San Francisco. Orange County is getting tighter and tighter. The affordability index is around 20%. I want to stop playing at 20%. I don't want to wait for 17. I want to pull off my chips at 20.
Do you see this happening in, slowing typically happen in California and certain hot markets like that versus other markets around the country first? Or is there any correlation here? Because I think during the last crash you saw a lot of California started faltering, and then a lot of the other states, depending on the state, obviously, started to take some faltering too. I mean, Florida and some of the markets, there's some baby dives, but I'm just curious what you guys see.
That was, honestly, that's a one-off event, the last downturn. It'd be really hard to say, okay, let's compare that with anything in the past, or probably anything going forward. Also, what happened in Florida is it was largely owned by investors from other states that were buying 50 houses because they could get financing, and so that's why you had such an amazing blend for that. Interest rates, their movement can sometimes spur activity. So somebody's regretfully going, I could have refined at 3.5, but I didn't. Now it's 5, and it's going up. So okay, well I'll do it now. At least it's 5. So that can spur activity. Usually when you get to an affordability breaking point, that's a combination of events, prices going up, or the interest rates going up, or wages not keeping up. And that's, to me, the more important factor. So we've had some increases that are not in that 26% number. So you'll probably be at 23 next time we hear from the affordability board. And so, okay. And you also have to take into account that lending is still pretty conservative. And so maybe 23 is the new 17. And so you could have a domino effect. And the domino effect's not pleasant.
Bruce, can you explain what affordability means to people?
Yeah, the way they figure affordability is the assumption is that you're going to put 20% down. and they work off the median price in California. So say it's 600 grand, 20% down, you'll have a 480 loan, match it with the current fixed interest rate, get you a payment, what percentage of the households get a yes answer from the lender. So you have a history of that number going up and down, and goes down to 17% usually. The last time we went down to 11% for a little bit of time, and that was just stupid because we didn't qualify people, we didn't care if they really had a job or anything. So that's not going to be seen again. But after you get 17% affordability, there's a sequence that happens you do not want to get in the way of.
Yeah.
So Bruce, can you talk about that? So, like last week, interest rates took a jump, right? So
Yeah.
Are you saying like instantly the affordability index is going to change, right? Because that house.
Yeah, it's just a math formula. So if it went
But it
from,
can change very quickly, right? With their interest rate rise.
yeah, you just math formula, you sit there and go, okay, well, that did affect it. Let's say if you got to 6%, you'd probably be at 17% affordability statewide. And by the way, I view the state number more important than the local number, because that's a systemic event. Basically, then all of a sudden, the whole place is like, uh-oh, and there's no safe place to hide. And so all of a sudden, we start having building of inventory and all the negative things.
Jimmy, where do you see, I mean, I think everyone understands at some point in time we're going to have some kind of correction or recession. Do you see that as a short-term or a long-term risk, or kind of both right now?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that just from a recovery perspective, just the actual economic recovery, if we hit next summer, will be the longest recovery on record for I think over a century. And so it's very unusual that we even got here, just to be clear. So we will eventually have some type of an adjustment. Everything's cyclical. So a lot of the articles that I read, a lot of analysts that I read, have basically now assuming like 2020 will be the time for the downturn. And I think a lot of the argument is predicated on the fact that the tax benefits that we have this year to kind of just prolong this whole cycle probably start to wane in 2019, and eventually it'll kind of finally take over in 2020. I tend, as Bruce mentioned before, I tend to look at the yield curve, and that typically will give you a 12 to 24 month heads up on when a recession is coming, and that's not at the point where it's actually flash red yet. And with interest rates going up, well, it depends on how the market reacts, but right now we're not quite at that point yet. If you take a look at the chart of the yield curve, you would think that it's probably going to happen by the end of this year, beginning next year, that it will finally flash red, but we'll have to see actually what happens. So,
Okay. And historically, it's interesting. So I'm just curious, at what level do you think it will invert?
what do you mean at what level?
What interest rates will it invert?
That could not predict that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but here's, again, if you put it in historic content, if the last time it inverted, it was at 6, time before that 6.5, time before that 8. If it inverts within a year, it'll probably be under 4. And why that's significant is that when you have a recession, the Fed, their tool is to lower the short-term rate, and usually 4.5 to 5 points is the reduction during a recession, which could put you in negative territory for interest rates and could give you record low mortgages again. So it depends on the speed of that next recession, whether you see unbelievable rates again.
One of the things I want to talk to you real quick is that, for me, I'm very much I distinctly separate the economy and the move inside the economy from real estate. I see them as affecting each other, but I don't see them as traveling the exact same path. If they just separated, in my opinion, after the downturn, I mean, multi-units recovered were the first to recover after this last downturn. Real estate had a long, slow trajectory, but because of the quantitative easing, all of a sudden we saw basically a strong return inside of the stock market, inside that financial market. But it didn't do anything to actually increase our GDP. Right? So here we are, we have a healthy increase in stock market. We have a real estate market that's kind of slowly bumping along, trying to find some gas here, and we have GDP that's frankly flatlined. Right? And I'm looking at 3 different distinct segments, because the stock market isn't, to me, the stock market is no longer a primary indicator of the health of our economy. So I break those down as distinctly different. Could a recession inside the stock market because of the yield curve reversal lead to an economic recession? Absolutely. Can it lead to an effect on real estate? Yes, but real estate has its own fundamentals that are supporting this. Could real estate change those fundamentals? If financial structures change and lending change? Yes, we could see less security, less stable assets. Real estate could be considered less stable assets if we had questionable loans underneath them. That would create something inside of real estate. So you see how distinctly dividing those up as factors, three different factors that affect each other, but they each have their own indicator and their own trajectory.
Yeah, I just want to clarify though that I know that you guys both focus more on single family, but I would differentiate between when you say real estate, to me I think what you mean is single family.
I do.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
naturally
commercial is-
single family,
commercial is
not
very
office and not industrial,
Yeah.
which has their own effects.
Yeah, I mean, and every asset class in commercials
Yeah.
reacts to, I mean, I actually invest in certain asset classes for a downturn, or at least help protect against a downturn, while other ones to stay away from in anticipation of a downturn. But the bottom line is that no matter which way you look at it, commercial real estate is commercial typically, and therefore it's tied to the economy to an extent. And it depends where it is, it depends on supply, it depends on trends in the market, like Amazon, and all more e-commerce, demanding more industrial, whereas, large retail centers that are indoors are completely on a decline. So we can have a very long discussion about it, but I just want to make sure we differentiate between this.
The apartments have gone crazy in value. The cap rates are very low. In speaking to an apartment owners association, there were 600 people in an audience that normally can hold 400, so they were lined on the walls. I was like, holy cow. I said, you guys are either really excited or really scared. And one of the persons in the audience stood up, he said, we want to know if apartments are in bubble territory. I said, I'm not an apartment guy, but I'll ask you one question and you'll tell me, how many of you would buy your existing apartment for its current valuation? And there was rolling laughter. Now, why that's important is to realize what started that. You had a record number of foreclosures and people damaged credit, and this time the lender said, okay, well, you're not going to get to buy anything for 7 years with your credit. In Florida, they didn't foreclose on you for 3 years. So you had a 10-year period where you weren't going to be an owner with a standard loan, you were going to be a renter. And that shoved everybody into apartments, and the occupancy and the demand and all that. So that did cascade into that.
Yeah, I mean, for someone like me that's really conservative, apartments started to get expensive in 2013. That's when I started to shy away from them. By 2015, they were like 16, 15. They were just off the charts unless it was a unique deal. Like, I mean, I have a conversation with people every day about this, but I was having a debate with somebody today who was looking at a kind of a 5.9 cap in the Midwest, and it was a 400-unit building, and I was like, yeah, where's that going to be? What's the multiplier going to be in 2-3 years from now?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of apartment deals getting there. We won't even go to like local apartment deals where there's like 1 and 2 caps here, but I don't think a lot of people understand how much investment there could potentially be.
So, Bruce, you talked about the.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah.
I'm a realtor, so I think the two props that we're all following is prop 5 and 10. So I think that's going to make a big part of the question.
We're going to get into that later when we start getting into some government effects, but yeah, that's one of the things we're definitely going to talk about. Yeah, Ryan.
Just a quick question about commercial as a whole. Using the 5.9 cap as being something that starts to get a little crazy, obviously in the Midwest. I was wondering, historically speaking, where's that coming from? 5.9 may be crazy, 4.3 would be insane, 8 would be reasonable. Where's that? Where do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, to be clear, the
Can you repeat this question too, just so people can hear?
Yeah, so I think Hunter was asking, that 5.9 cap, relative to history, where does that land? And to be clear, the debate I was having today is the person that mentioned the 5.9 cap to me was probably a Class B building. They were saying that it's such a great deal that they might jump on it. They can't believe they found the 5.9 cap. And it was in Illinois. And I then sent them an article about the state of Illinois. I don't know how much you guys know about Illinois. I'm not trying to bash Illinois. Actually, I love Chicago. It's a great city. But they're having major financial problems. And I think that's actually why it was actually a good cap rate, because it's in Illinois. But in any event, the challenge with cap rates is that cap rate is based on a whole number of components. One of which is interest rates. So if you take a look at interest rates today, and where it's been versus history, you have to actually adjust for interest rates to begin with to even understand. So it's a really, and by the way, the cap rate varies by the quality asset, the location, and so forth. So what I meant by the asset class, because I invest across all the major asset classes. Here's what I will say. I'll give you some examples. I've invested in say in Texas, in a whole bunch of apartment buildings in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. The last deal I did that I thought was a good normal deal was like a 9.1 cap, Class B, 1980s construction, 97% occupied in Dallas, Texas. Okay, we sold that building in 2016 for a really, really nice profit. And I think it was like a 6 cap or something. Mobile home parks. I've been investing in those since 2010, which is really not that long a time. But back then, we could get a kind of a 3-star park or 4-star park, which is kind of a middle class type thing, for a 10 to 13 cap in the Midwest. That was the range. Now, if somebody gets like a 6.5 cap, they're really excited about it. And that's a huge problem because that's going to go back to it's probably going to increase 200 to 300 basis points up to like an 8. That's my opinion. That we have especially in that asset class, you can go back to 8, 9, 10 cap for sure in downturn. And so you got to look for really deep pricing right now, or you got to be very careful, or you just have to sell. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. But I invest very differently because I get into a deal where I'm locked in for 10 years. I've got to think way ahead. There's all different factors. I've got to think about the economy because it's commercial. Each asset class acts differently. It's very complicated.
Let me just ask one question connected to that, because I didn't know the answer to this. How aggressive is the financing for that product?
Mobile home parks?
No, any of the things you're saying that you have an excessively low cap rate. What's the lender's expectation of the money you're going to bring to the deal?
It depends on let's say non-recourse loan. With someone with a lot of experience to be able to get that.
Yes.
1 to 3 unit apartment building. You might be able to get like 70 to 75% loan to value.
Okay.
But based on current pricing.
But 5 year right now probably. So you're 5 to 7 unless it's a big product or something like that. But
Doing your amortization, whether a 5-year balloon or 10 or 7.
You get 10 year. I was referring to 10 year.
Okay.
10 year loans. But in a less risky time, so to speak, you could probably get it up to 80. 2011, 12, assuming financing is normal, you can get up to 80. But it's honestly, commercial doesn't range as much as probably what you're used to.
But it's not unthinkable that you could have a 25% price hit in the inventory you're talking about.
Down the line?
Yes.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, because
that becomes a lender problem then.
Oh, it becomes a problem for a lender, investor.
Systemic event. Okay. That's why I asked.
So, Brooks, I have a question for you on, we talk a lot about the fact that 2008 or 2007-8 was a bit of an outlier as far as both a run-up and a correction. We're all talking about something happening in the next couple of years. What do you think this next correction or recession is going to look like? Will it be as extreme as we had this past time, or do you see it getting maybe a little less aggressive in price decreases? What do you see in the next recession?
I'm doing a lot of analysis right now because we are going to write a new report in January. And the one thing I got to be suspicious of is the median price. That's the one category of pricing we have for a lot of years. But I thought about, like in the 80s, it didn't go down. Think about the 80s, 80 to 83, unemployment about 10%, interest rates 15, 17%, inventory for sale, 36 months of condos. And somehow the median price didn't move a tick, it actually went up. Now, and that's what I thought. I thought, you wouldn't have felt like, oh, this is
a lot more to that story, Bruce.
I know, and that's the thing. You've kind of got to respect the fact that, well, wait a minute, what is the median? It's the number in the middle. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you couldn't have that good false. And so that's the kind of thing I'm trying to figure out, because in the 90s, we looked like we had a very methodical downturn of about 1% or 2% a year for about 5 or 6 years. My inventory that I own went from 550 to 350 in a nanosecond. That's a big difference in the chart said. So what I think is there's going to be a difference in depending on what you own. So you're going to have a downturn if it starts because of the affordability getting to a limit. You'll have a sequence of events, but we're going to make a list of inventory you shouldn't own. Because I owned a custom home, 7 custom homes. So I had the highest priced stuff in an area that was a second home area that was on leased land. The trifecta.
0 for 3, huh?
0 for 3. So this downturn will be different this time because of a number of factors, but it won't be as severe as the one we had.
Christina?
I would add to that, certain asset classes you probably want to participate in, but also I'd add that certain regions, specifically certain markets, right? So, like we talked about before, San Francisco, what do I think is going to happen? So I listen to a variety of people, including Bruce, as well as some, I get people who forward me reports because they know that I do this. So I get a report from Nationwide, and Nationwide says, by the way, so Nationwide, the large insurance company, says we have a good 2 years in the real estate market, just like what they say. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I just thought I'd let you know.
I love to see how they were the last time. It's so much fun to look back and go, oh, that's what they said in 08.
Really? Okay. Well, and they're even saying the same sort of thing, which is, they rate, individual markets, and they have something like 20 different, it's much more greater than that. But they have a certain number of cities that they specifically rate. And they're like, okay, so it's 400 cities. They rate 400 cities.
Let me just interject something. In 2006, there was not one city in California rated in the top 100 negative at all. And in 1 year, it dominated the top 10. So you got to be careful who you listen to.
Be careful about who you listen to, because that's part of why I'm bringing this up, is Nationwide is going, okay, so we have 400 cities that we look at. And oh, by the way, we've had about 37 new cities go from where we feel like that they are safe markets to being neutral markets. And like, isn't that an indicator that you have 400 cities you look at, you now have taken almost 27 of them, moved them over from a positive rating to a neutral rating, and you're telling me I still have a long time ahead of me. And I'm like, no, I'm seeing regional softening across the board in a variety of different areas. That concerns me, so that worries me. So if your question was, when do I think the downturn is going to happen? Is that what your question
The question
is?
is the next downturn, when it
happens, what's it going to look like? Okay,
Okay.
so I think the sooner it happens, right, the sooner it happens, the less severe it's going to be. The longer this run happens, the more severe it's going to be. What's the primary factor that I personally am looking for as the game changer for how soon or how far? Having to do with how loose financing becomes. Right? So Trump's been talking about specifically changing Dodd-Frank and that regulation. And I'm starting to see people put out, no doc loans, right? 3% down loans. Like, okay, so I'm trying to see on the edges, I would say not major banks, but actually these are major banks, but I'm saying on the edges, these particular aggressive financing available. Well, if that aggressive financing becomes more center, then I'm almost certain that will extend this particular run primarily in residential, right? Not so much in commercial, but in residential. And that's going to extend this run, which is going to lead to more appreciation in highly appreciated markets, which we are in a highly appreciated market. This would be a very different conversation if we were sitting in Boise, Idaho right now. And just, nobody gets that as a joke.
They don't know the housing price index.
We're in a very different conversation. We're in Boise, Idaho right now. Like, it would be a completely different, Denver used to be that market, and now it's tripled in value since they legalized cannabis, marijuana. So, right, so be specific about your market and where it is you're investing. So when do I think it's going to happen? I'm pulling back, and I'm waiting on the sideline, and I'm waiting to see what does happen. Does GDP really hit 4%? Or does it stay at 2%, and we continue to have interest rates go up, which might lead to stagflation? Right? Or will GDP actually continue to move forward, and we're going to see looser lending standards, and then at that point we might see an even longer cycle than we're already in, and then I'm more worried about what the correction's going to look like on the downside.
Longer cycle in terms of appreciation.
Longer cycle in terms of room for appreciation for markets that are already being aggressive, continuing along that course. And so now again, my bias, I am talking about single family, and I'm really based in California, even though I have owned in a variety of places. Okay, so if we're talking about 4 units and I'm looking to see, it's a slightly different conversation.
And there's definitely ways to mitigate your risk in these different markets and things like that. And then, to go through and, for example, when I'm lending in these different markets, I'm always analyzing the cash flow situation of these markets too, to be able to understand what the downside risk is that you have to hold, and every investment strategy you're looking at, you're now backing yourself up and saying, okay, if there is a correction, what's my action plan to move forward? And how fast can I enact that action plan to either get out or mitigate losses as fast as you possibly can? And that's really the trick to all of this, no matter what you're investing in. Look at it that way. If you're holding properties, can you hold it with a reduction in rents by 10 or 15%? It's still going to be natural for you, or break even. If you're flipping or lending, what's your max loan to value on those types of assets? Look at those different things when you're investing in this stuff. So, fair question in the back?
Yeah, real quick, just to
I'm on hijack from it. I own assets in downstream markets that are cash flow positive, right? So I've owned single family because that's my background. I cared a lot when I lost the value of them, even if there's no cash flow.
Yes, I
just saying. I'm just saying. It's a good theory.
It's a way to protect yourself on cash flow.
Yes. When you protect yourself on cash flow, you can hold the asset up. But I'm just saying, it still really hurts.
Trust me, I know. I take the hits too.
Good. So I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay. So just to the single family home market, you made a couple interesting comments. One, you felt some appreciation still potentially happening. Is there a way that you could tie what Jeremy, Bruce, and yourself are saying and actually dissect that into a price point? The reason I'm bringing that up is you mentioned why you're getting out of Pasadena. We do a lot of house flips around LA, there's different price points. I feel the effect from the price point. I don't see any appreciation. And I see today, Bruce was mentioning, well, there's some things that have changed. I've never seen more investors in real estate. I've been in this for 26 years than there are today with people that have access to information and everybody's an expert, right? When I see a lot of price points, investors that are doing flips or new additions or new construction, the significant price drops recently. So how does that tie into your opinion of appreciation in the market?
Okay, so what you said was that you're actually seeing significant price drops in some of the markets you're flipping, and you're flipping all over LA.
Correct.
And so are you flipping in below the 500,000?
No.
Are you flipping above 3 million?
Everything below 1.2 for us.
Uh-huh.
I agree. I have demand, it's affordable.
Below 1.2, that's right.
Everything above that.
We're seeing longer days on market, you're having to hold it, maybe do price reductions. I did a $200,000 price reduction on one of my flips.
Right.
So yes.
So I'm just asking then, how does that tie in your opinion of appreciation? I don't really,
That's not appreciation.
Right, I agree.
I agree. But let me be clear something though. So I buy something.
Right.
I buy it at 1.725.
Right.
I put my rehab money into it, which is 250 to 300,000. Right, and then I'm putting it back out on the market. I put it back out at what I think the max price point is that the market can hold. But I'm still pricing it over what my original anticipation was.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So have I made money on that flip? Absolutely. When I reduced it to 200,000, did I still make money on my flip? Absolutely. I made my return that I originally was hoping to make. So to be clear, is appreciation still happening? According to the numbers, yes, appreciation is still happening. Inventory is expanding, days on market is getting longer. I don't want to participate in that market, even though it's going from 27 days on market to 35 days on market, or going from 3 months of inventory to 6 months of inventory. Like, I want to run at 6 months of inventory. I don't want to be at that trim point.
Right, and I agree. What I was really trying to clarify is, do you guys see that same effects in the different price points? In other words,
yes.
That's where I'm saying. So to the median, if the median is 600,000, I think we all agree that's still a relatively same price point, right? I mean, we still get multiple offers.
This is why, and then I'll let Bruce and Jeremy talk.
It depends where you are, by the way. If you have a $600,000 house in Hampton, you don't get any offers either.
So again, let me be specific. I would be very regionally sensitive. I'm seeing downtrends and softening specifically regionally and by price point. Right? So Pasadena above 2 million, right? Or 1.5. But I'm still saying, I can't, I'm putting in an offer, and we have 30 of the offers still going in if it's below 1.5 million. So it's really distinct and regional, and that's why I feel like this particular softening that we're seeing might actually be significant, because I'm seeing all of these independent indicators suggesting this, even nationwide saying 27 cities moved over. 500 cities nationally, we're seeing slowing, decreasing days on market. And so I'm looking at a variety of small indicators, but my experience on the ground is my market's done. It ain't going anywhere. We're seeing a topping and a decrease above the $2 million mark in Pasadena. It's done. Everybody else is the buyer, the single-family buyer, hasn't worked it out yet. But let me get my backside out of there before they catch on. Okay? But that's specific, right? That's regional and specific. Now, I don't know if I answered your question.
You did sort of.
Sort of. Sort of. Go ahead.
There was some other questions.
A couple questions, anybody?
I have a question. So let's say if you have rental properties and you have positive cash flow and you are predicting a market correction, are you going to sell or are you going to hold? Because if you sell right now, you're going to have the pain because you're going to be hit by the capital gain tax. And also you're going to lose that nice mortgage at 3-point-something%. But if you hold on to it, then you're going to go through the long-term pain of price reduction. So my question is, if you have cash flow positive rental properties, do you sell right now or do you hold?
It's a really hard question.
I know.
It depends on the preventative maintenance of your assets. It depends on which, yeah.
Let me try to talk to that for a minute. I made a joke earlier, and it was kind of a joke, but it was accurate in my world in the way I look at it, which is it's still worth it. I don't think so.
Just go ahead. Yeah, here you just.
Thank you. Done. Oh, wow. Okay. You're really loud. You must be. I do a bit of election. No, just that way I don't lose track of it. I just do this very so. No, I'm not done. Okay. So I'm very specific. My assets have a job. Okay, that job needs to be cash flow, and it needs to hit a certain cash flow number. If I'm getting my 10% on cash flow, or I'm getting my 8% on cash flow from that property, then that job, if I thought to fulfill that job through that downturn, because I believe it's going to be a mild downturn, I will keep it. I want a certain percentage of my portfolio to be my cash cow, so that I wake up every morning going, I got a check today. I'm breathing, I got a check today. I mean, that's passive, right? That is a passive life, right? That's what we hope for. But if its job is to be an appreciation asset, then I want to track my appreciation and sell it. I have had assets change jobs. And all of a sudden it becomes an appreciation asset, which I thought was a cash flow. I now have so much equity caught up in it, right? That I'm going to want to refinance, or basically, usually I just want to sell it. Does that make sense? So I really have to look at the numbers, and it needs to be a good performer for me to keep it. Otherwise, I have a tendency to want to sell. But
Okay.
there are other people here.
Thank you guys for the question. We got one more here, and then we're going to talk about the international and stuff like that. So let's go with this question.
So I listened to a podcast earlier this morning, and they were talking a lot about how major home builders are experimenting with modularization. And by that I mean they're moving the on-site labor to off-site manufacturing facilities, and how that's having a cheaper cost of new construction. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how that would impact the resale market, and if that's something that we should worry about, especially in Los Angeles.
It's not just that, they're starting to learn how to 3D print and stuff like that. I mean, they've got manufactured home companies forever. I mean, you can go to their factory and you think, okay, well, gosh, that's a no-brainer, let's do that. But it's never dominated the construction. The problem is if you're constructing it, you have to drive it there. So it has to be in a box, basically. And then you add all the stuff on site.
So when we built the 93 house back in Rosemont, we started with manufactured homes. And they drove the two pieces out and we put them together. And when we were done with 20 of them, we still built the rest of them. Because it was a preferred product. And there's still an acceptance problem. But 3D printing, that'll be an interesting, that's a new toy that's starting to get advanced. There's a lot of money attached to it. And that's going to be very interesting. Sean McTool's friend of mine, he has one on order, if you will.
How much?
Not going to say.
I'm starting a GoFundMe campaign right now for the 3D printer.
But this is significant.
Give you that answer.
This is actually going through the permit process in the city of California to say yes to a 3D printed ADU. So, I mean, you're talking about in a year that'll be in place.
Right now, there is one that is permitted in the USA that is a 3D printed. Right now.
So what's interesting about that is, let's say you could lower the cost of building a pool home by 60%. If I was a lender and I owned trillions of dollars on an existing inventory, that would be a problem.
Sell it all.
I mean, so there's a lot of things to think about, ramifications about that. So, but the manufacturer in the factory has been around a long time, and that's never taken over. I don't know why it went down.
I feel like robotics and technology and just intelligent machines are going to have a much greater effect on the overall economy and market, completely transforming everything than even just 3D printers, which 3D printers is one aspect. But yeah, if I was a lender, it's scary to see what would happen. If you own a ton of properties, all of a sudden you can build them for 40% of what you could have before. The market, I would think, if it's widely accepted, is going to have major issues. So we'll see what happens, but it's kind of interesting. That being said, let's kind of focus a little bit on, I want to focus on the landmines that you guys see out there right now, and I want to focus on them on an international level and a United States level, and then as well on a local level in California specifically. Jeremy, can you kind of talk, I guess, start off with the global level first on what your thoughts are on the major issues that you're seeing that could have a potential major effect on the U.S. real estate market or U.S. economy overall that scare you a little bit, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say what's interesting about all the international stuff is that at any point in time, there's always 10 different international things you can point to. So personally, I don't tend to pay too much attention to it. I will say what's been getting a lot of attention recently in a lot of the articles I've been reading has been the trade war and the potential domino effect that the longer it goes on, is it like a bluff or is it seriously going to be lasting for a long time? And actually there's a lot of people that are worried that that's really going to start to kick in quite soon, maybe toward the end of the year, next year.
That could have a huge effect on real estate because of construction prices and materials prices, right? Because a lot of that stuff comes from China, is that right?
Yeah, I'm thinking more just general economy. And I actually don't know the answer to, it depends on what you're using to build and everything, and what has a tariff and what doesn't. But the general economy, I think that's right now, I think that could be even considered by a lot of people to be the number one thing in the next 12 months, what's realistic to actually look out for from an international implication for the U.S. And then, for the U.S. itself, I think that you can't rule out the possibility that Trump may try to put in another stimulus package. So, I was talking to you guys earlier about the fact that I know there's going to be a downturn in 2020. But the thing is, if you take away the tax package that happened recently, they probably would have said 2018 or 19, right? So that already pushed it off. So, for me, it's a question of what's coming up that's not anticipated from that perspective that could actually either push things out or change things. Obviously, the Fed is doing what it's doing, and it's probably somewhat predictable about what it's going to do. And it's already priced into a lot of the stock market, and technically, it's going to catch up with us at some point, probably. But that's a little more predictable. In California, I don't invest in California for the most part. I have a little bit of investments in California, but I actually defer to one of these guys who are much better experts in California than me for that.
Bruce, what are you saying, Bruce, on the, I guess, international, national, and local level here in California? Do you think worries you about the overall market, I guess overall economy, and then specifically California real estate as well. I mean, we're really interested in that as well.
You know, and it's, the biggest problem for me is that I feel like every elected official is either a Democrat or a Republican, not an American.
That could have a giant effect.
That completely bothers me.
It could have a giant effect on the market if you think about it. Like, one part, the Trump administration side wants to show a booming economy throughout 2020. There's going to be major political push to continue that to happen. On the other side, they want everything to crash and burn right during that part, so that way they can control the Democrats can control it. The Republican Democrat thing, I think, could have a major effect because of these types of issues and these political pushes.
There was a conversation this week inside the family that we probably might buy a home in Portland because we have a relative that's probably going to move there. So I pull up Portland, and they basically have an unrest to where there's people on one side of the political spectrum actually controlling the traffic inside of the major city, Portland, and taking people out of their cars, and because they're different political beliefs. So you could have a civil event if it gets too out of control, which would be very disruptive. So I really wish we would all think about being Americans first and everything else second.
I think you had your bullet points of the fears. You went over and asked all of your group. You're like, auto loans, student loans, you have like 5 or 6 and you're like, I'm afraid of this.
Well, I'm tracking the trade wars and our trade with China. I'm tracking the interest rate and what effect will it have in relationship, balancing that in relationship to the GDP, which I already described. So I'm tracking lending. But as far as the economy, I'm really tracking the trade wars, and I'm tracking the yield curve. So remember, I'm watching the international economy, I'm watching stock and bonds, and I'm watching GDP as the economy itself. So I'm tracking internationally China and the trade wars there, tracking the yield curve.
That's a lot of work.
It's even worse because I don't read for an hour and a half every day. So you can actually kind of work.
I'm in the middle of 2 nerds, man.
Let's be clear, this is the nerd panel, okay? Let's just be clear.
I'm sorry. This is a compliment. I can say it's a compliment. I cannot out-nerd you. I apologize. You are going to absolutely win in that war. But no, I'm tracking them. I'm just tracking them. Not getting up for meeting an hour every morning. I'm tracking to see, is there salient information? So the salient information, remember I have my husband, right? He reads the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and the LA Times for me. So he helps me track these things because I'm not going to do it at an hour and a half every day. So, but yeah, I am tracking certain things, and I honestly, I don't know what's going to be. I'm actually most concerned myself about the yield curve. That's what I'm most concerned about as far as being an actual thing like, this action happened. Now consumer confidence or investor confidence is going to slide. Because I'm going to say something, nobody put tomatoes, okay? Nobody has any tomatoes on them? I'm just making sure. Okay. I don't really believe that it has to do with pure numbers that create something. I really believe it has to do with the willingness for the population to participate the way it's happening, and our confidence in that participation. So when I watch consumer confidence, I'm watching for it to be over-exuberant, and I'm watching for it to be dropping off. So the more confident consumers are, the more worried about I am about something big's going to happen. So, just saying.
Bruce Golf in particular, I mean, and this was a question you asked earlier about, Prop 10, Costa-Hawkins, and even Proposition 5. What about things like that? Do you see that as having a dramatic effect on what's happening in California, or is that just a blip on the radar?
I think it's the tip of the iceberg because it's a trend that's dangerous. There's three things that are concerning me there. So Prop 10, if it doesn't pass today, it's probably going to at some point, okay, because that is kind of the trend we're headed in. Prop 13, the commercial end of it, they want to take that away. That'll happen.
They just got the signatures on it. So
Okay, so that'll be on the ballot next year. So that probably will occur. That's a game changer.
So you see rent control.
Well, Prop 10 is, yeah, I do. Yeah, I kind of do. Because California historically has a really high percentage of people that are renting compared to the country, so you could see that vote getting passed eventually, if not this time. It wouldn't shock me if it passed this time, to be quite honest with you. That would not be pleasant. There's another bill that's floating around, is if you buy a trustee sales. If you buy a trustee sales, this bill wants you to be forced to rent it to a low-income housing. It was a big thing in the LA Times.
That's next year, not on this year's ballot.
I don't know that it's on the ballot, but that is the desire. So that's California. I mean, that's the direction of the mentality of where we live. And so that concerns me. Definitely does.
Is that a short-term concern or a long-term trend that?
It's a long-term trend. You know, what's interesting, Google is an interesting tool. I love to put whatever question followed by PDF, because then I get the history of it. I get these reports and I get the print and I'll see 50 years of this stuff, you know? So it's great. Well, so you can put in the question, most favorable state for migration of rich people. You know, whatever you want to do. And there'll be a map. And there'll be, California will be 49th and 50th on every question you ask. And Florida will be 1 or 2. And Texas will be 2 or 1. I mean, that's interesting. You can only lose that so many times before, you know what, people are going to leave. You know, I mean, some of us are pretty high earners here. What does it cost to stay in California? Yeah, what kind of mortgage? Think about having $1 million house in Florida on the water, and your tax bill that you pay in state would pay for it. Free. That's astonishing. I mean, when I think about the practicality of that, you go, yeah, well, there'll be people leave for that.
Well, they are.
Yeah, we have negative migration in between states constantly. We only get bailed out for immigration.
Can I go back to Prop 10 real quick? Well, if Prop 10 passes, that means that we'll see rent control, is that correct?
Now it's up to the individual cities to decide.
What Prop 10 is the repeal of Costa-Hawkins, which just means each of the local communities will have the ability to implement different rent control. It doesn't mean we're going to have rent control, but it means every city could implement rent control that's unrestricted.
Well, what's interesting about this, so to go with the spirit of they just passed, we have ADUs, right? Well, every city is just going, oh, that is so cool. So we can just charge the heck out of it. And it's basically doing away with the whole intent of the legislation. Aaron interviewed the senator that created the legislation. He's going to go over the top and go after these cities that have basically made it a huge profit center and prevented the actual intent from occurring. But that's what happens to legislation. You get the city to do rent control and create a profit center when you have people retiring and there's no money for it. That's a dangerous tool, including clawback. There's a city, I just spoke at an apartment conference, so clawback is the ability for the city to go, you raised rents for the last 5 years, we're going to request that you revert the rent back to what it was 5 years ago and write us the check for which you
not the tenant, the city?
The city.
To the city, that's correct.
I mean, that's California, so.
Do you think homes will, say, well, if I own this income property, I don't want rent control.
Yeah, you know, well, these guys, in this audience was some seriously wealthy people from apartment buildings and what they've done vice-wise, and that was their main concern. Do they want to own this thing or not?
Yeah. So if I may add a little bit to it, I think it's important to, for me, when I think about Prop 10, okay, let's say Prop 10 does pass, then it's up to the individual cities to enact their rent control. So if you look at Santa Monica, Los Angeles, Hollywood, and Beverly Hills, they've already declared what their particular tact is, or their particular point of view is about having rent control in their cities. There's a lot of other cities, guys, that don't have rent control currently, and haven't tried to enact any version of rent control. Because, I mean, Beverly Hills, when it had enacted a version of rent control after Costa-Hawkins had actually passed, but within the guidelines of that act. So I'm not, so therefore my point is, don't freak out, right? You do want to understand what city you're in, but if you're in LA or you're in Santa Monica, then I would have a concern about what the city's going to choose to do. LA has already passed in September a 6-month rent freeze, so that nobody could increase their rents in the next 6 months until Prop 10 was decided. So I think LA City has kind of already declared what its particular position is. So again, be aware of what your region is, what's happening in your particular market. Well, you're not in rent control.
No, I know that, but if Prop 10 passes, that could happen.
Could, but Long Beach, I mean, Long Beach, they were trying to encourage some version of rent control, and if they didn't get enough,
Yeah, a lot of cities will fail.
So, yeah, it doesn't mean that that particular city is going to actually have it.
So who decides, the city officials decide if it's?
We do.
Oh, we do, no.
Oh, so, no, I understand, if we were voting in November, if Prop 10 passes, then the cities each individually decide, are we gonna do rent control or not? What does that mean to cities? The city officials?
Yeah, I mean, it just becomes part of the government process, and we as citizens will participate in that. So one of the things that we talk about, if Prop 10 does pass and they repeal Costa-Hawkins, nothing's going to happen immediately, but we get another chance to impact, but it'll be on a local level or a community level. It doesn't mean the state's going to implement it.
And just because if the cities do enact rent controls and you're at the top of the market and the rents are already top dollar, it could take a long time for those rents to actually continue to rise to whatever rent control percentage increase they have on an annual basis and things like that. So it may not necessarily affect as much as you may think in that period of time. There'll be an initial scare, I think, but I know a lot of apartment owners that are like, that'd be great if they enacted a rent control of 3% increase a year at the top of the market right now, so great. So it's kind of interesting.
Jeremy, a question for you more on kind of long-term economy, specifically on like some future obligations like Social Security, Medicaid, some things, Medicare, things like that. When do you start to see some things like that from a government programs start to potentially have some kind of effect on the economy, which can still be real estate?
That's a really tough question. I mean, I think that...
You asked for it to be in the panel, so...
Yeah, it's a good question. I got to be a little more clear next time. I think that tying it to real estate is really tough. But I think figuring out... My personal opinion is that, and I did not ask the question so I can answer it, but my personal opinion is that I think that with the amount of money printing we've been doing and the direction we've been heading in, I mean, if you take a look at Japan and how long it's had such a huge amount of debt to GDP, I think we have like a long amount of runway left, and especially with the way politicians handle things in this country, they just want to get reelected and just keep kicking the can down the road over and over. So my opinion is that between pensions and other long-term obligations, like Social Security and all that, I think that I think there's going to be a lot, I think it depends on who gets elected, but I think for sure they're going to have to be forced to start to talk about it by 2024 very seriously in that presidential election. What they do about it at that point, if anything, I'm not sure. That might be a multi-year discussion. By 2030 to 35, if not before then, especially because of pensions, certain public pensions be guaranteed, and even private pension issues they're going to have. I think the pensions are probably just going to get done like we got done in the financial crisis, where they're just going to have to kind of, essentially the government's going to have to take on the debt that's going to come on the back of the taxpayers. How they handle Social Security, Medicare, I mean, they have different options with those. They can cut back certain entitlements, they can change age, they can use different CPI methods, they can do a whole bunch of different things. But I think the whole thing is going to have to be dealt with at some point between all those things, probably between 2025 and 35, say. And when I say dealt with, I mean actually discuss and maybe do something about it. God knows if they could just kick the can around a little bit more.
What about state pensions and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're really, the pension problem is a huge problem. If you actually look at both public and private pension and what's going on with the actual coverage ratio of those pensions, it's crazy. They're basically Ponzi schemes. I mean, that's not the right term, but the coverage ratio is so low that it's a matter of time.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
Well, what's scary about it is it's a Ponzi scheme that's got teeth. Because the way it's written is the same verbiage as Social Security.
Right.
So it's the state, the citizens of the state have promised this person that they are going to get that money. It's the same verbiage legally as Social Security.
And they use that money to pay out that generation previously. So it really is going to be these current people are paying into that generation because the money they got put in is already gone.
And you know, I think that if you want to tie it all back to real estate, the problem with all this, at the end of the day, is that the reason why GDP is in this 2% range and it's not going anywhere is because there's a whole structural challenge with debt, and it's only going to get worse, right? And so we're going to end up in this 1 to 2% range probably in a decade or two, and that's going to be the new norm. And we're going to have, you know, and also we haven't even talked about the fact that the population is getting older, which is part of the reason why we have a structural problem. So we're heading into like a period of slower and slower average GDP growth, which has all kinds of implications, not the least of which will affect, and especially on the commercial side of real estate, you know, how much can you push rents if the economy is growing up, or how much can salaries go up if the economy is growing up?
With these state pensions and things like that, you can see that some of these other states, the way they've handled that is by doubling and tripling property taxes to just get out of it. So is it going to fall on all the homeowners, and then all of a sudden properties drop that way potentially because of the cash flow?
That's possible. At the end of the day, though, one way or another, it has to come from the taxpayer. Whether it's property taxes or some other tax, sales taxes, whatever tax. So, and actually, it might be interesting to see how Illinois handles it. I'm not saying that they're all going to handle it the same, but it'd be interesting to see how they handle it specifically, because that's going to come to head pretty soon, I think. But tying it back to real estate, it does depend on what type of real estate it is, and it's very hard to predict because it depends on how it's handled. But I do personally think that by 2024, that new president, whoever it's going to be, I think will have to start to deal with it if they haven't already been forced to, especially on the pension side.
One of the radio interviews we did is we did interview the attorney that basically goes in front of Congress whenever a state declares bankruptcy and tries to wipe out their obligations. And it's a superior debt. So it's equivalent to having a property tax lien instead of a trustee. So you're not getting rid of it. It's superior to everything else. And that's why, because it's the verbiage is exactly the same as Social Security. So at the end of the day, that's why I think you're right about the government, the national government, having to come up and write the check. Because you're talking about somebody who's been retired for 15 years, and they're getting 60 grand from the fire department, and then they're going to get asked to take 12. First of all, fair? No. Because they opted out, maybe I think you're wrong, but let's say you're a teacher, you opted out of Social Security. You don't get that check. You get the other check. That's the system you signed up for, and all of a sudden you're saying, yeah, we were just kidding? Are you kidding? So you can't do that. You just can't do that. So at some point, we're going to have to, eventually we should tell the truth and say, you know what, we promised too much, so we're not going to do that anymore. But for the people that are retired, how do you make them poverty stricken? I mean, the wealth of the country, when you look at the median wealth of retired people, they're not wealthy.
It's going to take a very special politician to tell someone the truth. About this. I mean, this is not like
all they have to do is act like an American instead of a Democrat or Republican, period. Because it's the right thing to do. We're handing this gigantic bill to our kids, and they both know it. They just want to get elected worse than they want to do their job. I wouldn't make a good politician, huh?
Next question on those, I have a $21 trillion question. The national debt. And it takes about $500 billion a year to service that debt. I don't see too many people talking about it. I don't see too much risk about it. The government, our officials, Congress, they seem to just, it's like $21 trillion gorilla in the room, but how does that affect the economy? Is it even a part of the economy? People, they seem to just ignore it like it's not even connected to the economy.
Yeah, so the question for those in the back asking about the national debt that we have and the amount of money we're servicing on that. Christina, you have some thoughts on that?
I have a few thoughts on it. I think it is treated that way, it's pushed to the side. One of the ways I think about national debt, the structure I put around it, is it's basically you own, like, you earn $100,000 a year, and you have $100,000 worth of debt on your house, right? So our GDP right now is 109%. Right? Our debt is 109% of our GDP. And so we have a little more in debt than we have in our GDP. So can you pay off your house over a long period of time? Yes, we've agreed to do that. So that's a part of what I think allows people to ignore. But that's just a structure. Because down here is what I'm more worried about. The amount of money it takes for us to pay on that. I mean, how many of us have, you buy a house and you're like, a third or a half of your income's going to that house, and you're just so grateful you paid that house off because now you live free and clear in a house and you go, whew, okay, we're safe. Right? So that's our problem. So we have this huge amount of money that's going to go pay on this debt, and we're increasing interest rates. Right? And we're not the only one who owns our debt. We have other countries who own our debt. They want it to perform if they're going to buy our T-bills. That is one of those things that does concern me because we have so much, it's going to cost so much to service it. If we do pass through certain interest rates, we're not going to grow our GDP. We're not going to be capable of continuing to grow economically because the pure debt that we're having to pay is going to cut back our teachers and our firefighters and our city officials, and it's going to cut into all of that other money that's just floating out of the system. So yes, I'm concerned about that.
It's just not going to happen tomorrow, and that's the problem. It doesn't seem urgent yet. But it does keep on taking a bigger piece of what would have been out there in the economy. It's now being paid in interest, and it grows. But Japan, it's interesting you mentioned that. If we're at 109%, what are they at 3?
I don't know the number anymore. I know it's north of 200.
I think they're over 250. I'm looking
Yeah, they're between 250 and 300%. Why can they handle that? Because what are their interest rates? 0. So literally, they pay no interest on their debt. You can owe a lot of money and not have any payment on your debt.
The biggest challenge is a lot of the Japanese citizens. I have a lot of capital investors in Japan, and one of the biggest challenges is that a lot of the citizens are very loyal and invest in the government bills consistently, and their population is declining at such a rapid pace, and their savings are dwindling to the point where they won't be able to continue to invest. And if their interest rates go up by 1%, their debt goes from 25% of GDP, their debt payment, to 75% of GDP. They're done if that happens. So, it's just interesting. At some point, it's going to come to a head, and I think it's going to come to a head in a lot of different countries. And, I feel like Federal Reserve is going to be one of the last ones standing, potentially. But at the same time, I feel like at the end of the day, the only way out is to print more money, until it comes to a peak, until hyperinflation happens. And, this could happen 20, 30 years from now, but at the same time, I don't see a way out. I've never seen another way.
In theory, we could get such an aggressive amount of growth in our value of our dollar with hyperinflation that now our GDP, our debt to GDP ratio becomes 70%, because now in American dollars, our GDP is so much higher because inflation has gone up, not because we're producing more goods and services. And so that's what it means to hyperinflate our way out of our debt.
Do you have some thoughts on that, Jimmy?
Well, I think that the problem is that I think if you really think about it, there's a lot of things that we're missing out that we could have right now as far as infrastructure spending. I can go on and on and on, right? So we can all sit here and say there's not really much of a problem and it's not really affecting much, or it doesn't seem like it is. But to me, it's like all these benefits we can have are just hidden under the carpet, and no one, pretty much, they don't want people thinking about it. That's what I think, so they can get reelected and everything. So I think it's affecting us a lot more than I think people realize. And now with the headwinds of the population shift, as far as the aging population, that's going to become a bigger and bigger problem as we go on. And it's not just, and it's actually increasing at the same time. We're going to have more of those headwinds. So it'd be interesting to see where we land in 10, 20 years from now. You know, the kind of like long-term GDP, I think, is going to maybe at 1.5% instead of 2.
Can I just talk about infrastructure spending? How many of you know what a hyperloop is? Ever heard of it? Okay. Well, look at the hands. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Well, I found out about 3 weeks ago since I had to ask Sean tool questions about it. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay. But an American company is building the first prototype in another country because they have the money. The government is backing the expenditure. And what hyperloop is a tube basically that is vacuum that can take people and cargo at 700 miles an hour. And think about that. You could live in Riverside and work in San Francisco and be there in 45 minutes.
Think about how many Amazon boxes you guys can get now.
I mean, that's crazy stuff.
So it's 9 o'clock, and we've got about maybe 10 more minutes before we wrap up. Last question for each of you guys, and Jeremy, I'll start with you first on this one. So we talked a lot about the economy, like, based on what you're saying in the conversation we had tonight, like, what are you doing right now as an investor, and where do you see there being opportunity moving forward?
Yes, so you got to keep in mind that I typically get into like a 10-year term opportunity based on the loan and what people are projecting how long it's going to be. So I have to think way ahead. So I've been sitting on the sidelines and hopefully selling more than buying for about 1.5 years now in anticipation of a downturn. And I still invest in what I would call unique pricing. So for me, that means, let's say, better than 10% below market or some unique situation, which does come up. If you have a big enough network, you can find interesting opportunities. But I am frustrated, and this happened back in 05 to 08, where I'm sitting on the sidelines. I'm anticipating sitting on the sidelines probably another 1.5 years. I'm involved in a lot of different sales right now. And just going to wait it out so there's an adjustment and just move back in. In the meantime, though, I'm just trying to be ultra careful. You know, whether we're in the equivalent of 2006, 7, 8, 5 from a timing perspective, not necessarily implying it'll be the same severity. It just doesn't seem like a smart thing for me to be, you know, jumping into a lot of different things right now unless they're particularly unique. So that's what I'm doing.
And Bruce, before you answer the question, you mentioned before that you interviewed the senator. You guys still have your radio show podcast on your website. Another great place for information. The Norris Group has some great content. Bruce and his team talk to a lot of really interesting people. So if you're looking for a place to get more content, the Norris Group is a great spot to go.
Yeah,
the Norris Group, norrisgroup.com.
And that's completely free, like 10 years worth. And one of the interviews is kind of funny because remember the report that I talked about, it had all the, you know, like California's got no problems and next year all hell broke loose. I interviewed the guy that was in charge of that report. It was a very gentle question that I asked.
Okay,
something like,
what's the name of that podcast? I can go back and find it.
Well, it's not the timing. So you look about 2007, it's in there. It's kind of funny, you know.
So what are you guys doing now? Where do you see opportunity?
We're getting more active in Florida. So we're building 4 homes in California that we're wrapping up. And the builder that I've been with, been partnering with, is moving to Florida. So we'll be doing active stuff there. Just the migration that Florida gets and the type of migration it gets kind of ensures its growth pattern for quite some time. So that's why I like that.
Christina, you also have a radio show or a podcast that you do as well?
I do. I have a podcast as well. It's on iTunes, AWP, AWOP Talk 24/7. So it stands for Amazing Women of Power. Thank you very much. But in January I'll be launching a new one that's also be on iTunes that is the same AWP, specifically 100% of real estate. So thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it. So I was talking with an investor today. He was in my flip projects, and he was asking me specifically, and so he says, well, if you're breaking down, he said, what are you doing next? What's the next project we can I can invest in it. So, well, we're actually going to be closing and flipping. So what are you doing next? So what we're doing next is I'm working with my partner Debbie. We're thinking about moving into the hospitality space, also known as short-term rentals, also known as Airbnb. So we're looking at possibly moving into that, which is really much more of the hospitality space than it is an actual, like it's a business model of hospitality versus Airbnb. I flew out to Detroit about 3 months ago, and my business partner's going to fly out to Detroit later this month to be able to look at maybe investing in rehabbing to hold in Detroit, in that market. And we're currently flipping in Indiana. So we're not just doing the passing and flips, I'm also supporting some projects in Indiana that are going on. So that's where we're moving to. Notice it's not in my particular respect, but again, where I'm trying to go is something that I feel like it would be productive when this appreciation market is happening.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to end it on that note. First of all, we get a round of applause for. Thank you. So, again, our conference is next month. If you have an interest in going, this goes out until 11:59 tomorrow night. Go to intelligentinvestors2018.com. We also will be back here in November, back in this room, and then we take December off. So we'll be back sometime in January here. Everyone's going to go down to North Italia, these three included, Matt and myself. So please stick around, network. When you leave, if you go down this hallway and out through this door, there's a doorway back through here that will allow you to just kind of get around the back and not have to walk all the way to the front of the building and then all the way back to North Italia. So just follow this hallway down. And thank you guys for coming tonight. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.